to talk about alternatives to Photoshop and Lightroom because some people don't like to pay that subscription fee. So Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom are the most popular programs for photo editing, but like you just said, they're not free. They're $10 a month, which to me is a great deal for the two best programs out there. But you can also sometimes, and that's what I do, is I look for a deal on Black Friday for $99 for the year. Usually Amazon has that going as one of their Black Friday deals. But if you're not a person like me that's editing photos every day, maybe you don't want to spend that kind of money. So we're going to show you some alternatives. So one of those is Adobe Photoshop Elements. So this is a $100 one-time buy, and then you own it forever. And it includes a lot of good features. There's a photo organizer. There's some kind of Adobe Sensei AI automatic editing. I don't know if it's any good. I have never used it. I'm just going to take my mask off because my glasses are fogging up. It can do raw image editing, batch editing, and you can do smart tags that'll recognize people and tag them in it. And you can use it to share to social media such as Twitter and YouTube, but not Facebook, because Facebook don't like it, I guess. Then there's this one called GIMP, which is kind of a funny name. It's called the GNU Image Manipulation Program. That's a geeky name if I ever heard one. And it's absolutely free. And it used to be just for Linux, but now there's versions out there for OS X, which is for Macs, and then also Windows, of course. One of the drawbacks is you can't use it for raw files unless you have a plugin. So that's a problem, I guess, if you like to do raw files. Another drawback is that all the editing you do with it is destructive, meaning you can't just hit the back arrow and it undoes it like we have in so many other programs. And there's no image catalog type of feature to it. But again, it's free. So can't complain about that. Then the next program is another free one. It's called Darktable. And it's very similar to Lightroom in the way it looks. And it does work with raw files. And it does do non-destructive editing, meaning that your original raw images are never touched. You publish your finished image out to a JPEG when you're done, and your raws are still exactly the way they were. It's got a lot of good professional color management options, some of which I never heard of, like XYZ. Never heard of that one, but it's out there. And this one again also works with Linux, OS X, and Windows, and it's free. Then we have another one called THERAPEE. Of course, they gotta spell it funny because it's the way we do things nowadays to be able to brand it. But it's another free one, and as it suggests in the name, it works with raw files. And this one is kind of like for the real geeky people that want to do real intense processing with HDR, high dynamic range, pixel shift processing, dark frame subtraction for astrophotography. So this one is, the learning curve is extremely steep. I played with it once and it's like, I don't have time, but it's out there. So then there's this one, which is becoming real popular, and this is the one that Jim will speak about. It's On1 Photo Raw 2020.5 is the full name, according to their website. It's a $69 one-time purchase, and then you own it forever. The little caveat with that is, well, you own 2020.5 forever in 6 months when they come out with 2021, you gotta buy that one. So that's the, you know, sometimes you get deals if you're just upgrading, stuff like that. I know what Luminar you do, but you know, they're gonna get money out of you one way or another. And it does a lot of features here, very similar that we have in the other programs with a photo organizer. It does raw. You can do layer edits. There's some artificial intelligence features. It has a map view and a print module. And another good feature is you can use it as a plug-in if you still are using Photoshop and Lightroom. And so that's the way a lot of people use it. So because there's features in here that you don't get in Lightroom or Photoshop, or at least, you know, to do them in there is more difficult. So that's the way I use these kind of programs, is as a plug-in.
So on one other really cool feature that I found very helpful, they have a built-in resize feature. So when I needed to do my 30 by 50, it made it this really huge file. But the resize that was built in is just phenomenal. I mean, I know Topaz has one, but it was built into here and it worked awesome. So if you print large, it's worth the money.
Okay, did you guys at home hear that?
No.
Okay, so Elizabeth mentioned that On One has a nice feature where you're able to resize photos. If you need to do big prints, you can use that feature to resize your photo larger for printing. And then we have Luminar 4. This one's a $67 one-time purchase, and you own it forever until Luminar 5 comes out. Well, you'll still own Luminar 4, I guess, but you know, you'll feel like I need to upgrade. But it's got a lot of the same features with the photo organizer, raw processing, layer editing. It's got a lot of AI features. Some are a little more gimmicky than others. There's sky replacement, augmented sky, structure, accent, and skin enhancer, which I think does a decent job. It also is non-destructive, meaning your raw files are never touched. You're only editing a copy of it that you then export as a JPEG. I seem to have layer editing on there twice. It can also do batch processing. So then we're going to have live demos on Luminar 4 that I will do, and then Jim will demonstrate On One for us. And so I'm going to show this 5-minute video about Luminar, because they can explain it better than me, and then we'll do a live demo.
Hi, Anthony Turnham, professional photographer here, and in this video we're going to get you up and running with Luminar 4 in under 5 minutes. So let's go. First of all, you need to tell Luminar where you keep all of your photos. Either click the plus icon in the top left, or come across to the Library tab and press the plus next to the Folders menu. From here, navigate to the folder that contains your photos. In the Library module, you can organise your photos by giving them ratings, colour labels, and selecting your favourites. A great place to start is with the preset looks that come bundled with Luminar. Simply click the Looks button along the top row. You can select an appropriate family of looks and simply click the look that you want. From here you can go further and fine-tune the look of your photo using the Edit menu situated on the right-hand side. A great place to start is with the Essentials tab. The Light panel gives you access to some simple yet really powerful tools to quickly change the look of your photo. Temperature and tint controls the colour balance, whilst the exposure slider and the tools below it help you dial in the correct brightness for your photo. Under that section come two absolute powerhouses for your editing arsenal. AI Enhance has the AI Accent tool and AI Sky Enhancer, both of which provide a super quick way to improve your images with a simple slider. If you want to add some contrast, Luminar's AI structure does a fantastic job. Just give it a go. If black and white is your thing, dive into the black and white conversion tool. Here you can control the brightness of individual colours or bring individual colours back. This photo was shot in the dead of night and I probably shot it with a really high ISO. So let's check. Come over to the info tab and amongst other information we can see that in fact I did shoot this at ISO 12,800. We can use our magnification tool to confirm this, and we can tell that we will definitely benefit from the denoise tool. Let's add back some sharpness, and finally let's bring some attention to the center of our frame using the vignette tool. Come to the creative tab, and I thoroughly recommend just playing around with the tools found in here. For this example, let's add some drama. Now let's create a dreamy look with the mystical tool, and finally let's give the image a color toning with the color styles tab. Here I recommend initially boosting the amount slider all the way up so you get a good feel for the look it's applying, and then you can just dial it back once you're happy with the selection. If you feel as though the sky in your image is in need of a bit of a helping hand, the AI sky replacement tool is incredible. Simply choose the sky you want and Luminar will do the heavy lifting of creating a mask for you. When you're happy with your new sky, you can use the before and after eye tool. As you can see, any image can be transformed into a masterpiece. The Portrait tab houses some incredible AI tools to help you retouch your portraits quicker than ever. If your subject has bad skin, acne for example, the Skin Defects Removal tool does a fantastic job of cleaning up the skin while leaving the skin texture intact. And the amount slider can be used to subtly smooth the skin. Have a play around with the portrait enhancement tools and you'll see just how much a portrait can benefit from these sliders. We can finish the image with a bit of a high key effect and perhaps even add a little bit of the autumn effect. The Pro section has more great tools that I encourage you to play around with. The simple slider based approach lets you quickly see the effect a tool has. If you want to revert a panel to its default values, simply click the arrow icon. Or if you want to see what effect the sliders have had without losing the slider values, just toggle the panel on and off. If you take your image in a direction that you don't like, you can use the history panel and go all Marty McFly and just jump back in time. When you've created a look that you're happy with, you can actually apply that look to single images or multiple images by coming up and right clicking or control clicking on Mac, coming to Adjustments, Copy Adjustments, and then select the images you want to apply it to and simply again right click or control click and come to Paste Adjustments. Just like that, Luminar applies the effects along with any AI adjustments you've made too. So in this case you can see that we've replaced the sky instantaneously in these other 4 images. Amazing. Once you're happy with the look of your photo, come up to this icon here and you can export it to the location of your choice and with the settings you choose. Luminar is an extremely powerful piece of software, but it's so much fun to actually play around with. So that's what I encourage you to do, guys. I've given you this brief introduction, but dive in, get hold of those sliders and just see what it can do.
No.
No.
Okay, then you're just like us. Okay. Why do things never want to work? I bet it's probably putting it down the pipe through the HDMI cable.
Either click the plus icon in the...
Okay, so we'll start over.
Hi, Anthony Turnham, professional photographer here, and in this video we're going to get you up and running with Luminar 4 in under 5 minutes. So let's go.
Randy, it looks like we're seeing highly, it's
First of all,
jumping,
you
so
need to
it's
tell
not
Luminar.
coming through fluidly. You might be losing your audio.
Okay, let me try to do something here then.
You could send a link for that.
Cool.
Oh, we're seeing everybody's screen.
Yeah.
Hi, Anthony Turnham, professional photographer here, and in this video we're going to get you up and running with Luminar 4 in under 5 minutes. So let's go.
It's pretty jumpy.
First of all, you need to tell Luminar where you keep all of your photos. Either click the plus icon in the top left, or come across to the Library tab and press the plus next to the Folders menu. From here, navigate to the folder that contains your photos. In the Library module, you can organise your photos by giving them ratings, colour labels.
Yeah, it's.
Just email everyone the link.
Okay, so I'll just send a link out to everybody, and you guys can watch this on your own. I'll also include it when I post the YouTube video. I'll just add that in there. So we'll just move on. Sorry about that. So I'll open up Luminar here. Can the folks at home still see my screen?
I can see that guy on the screen.
Yeah, he's still, the audio, the video you're showing is still showing.
Okay.
See
So-
Anthony.
Switch the screen.
So let me go back to
There you go.
Teams.
You got it now.
Okay. Well, Luminar.
Now I can see Luminar 4. Yeah.
Okay, it's starting to open. I should have opened it before. Of course, it would have ate up more memory. Got to close a few windows here. Okay, so do you see a picture of a woman?
Nope, still Luminar screen.
Okay. Let me stop
Not
the
yet.
share and restart it.
Somebody said yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
See her
They're
now.
way behind us.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing just for a second and restart it. Sometimes that will get it back to working well. And I'm just going to share the one program. Obviously, we have a picture here of a model, and one of the features of Luminar is called looks. And so it's kind of like presets, but it's more like a LUT, if you know what that is. But you can hover your mouse over here, and it looks terrible on the projector here. Trust me, it looks better, on your own computer screen, but our projector is not showing this very well. But as you put your mouse over it, it updates the picture in real time to what that look is going to be like. And there's all sorts of looks that it comes with. You can get more looks, some are free, some are not. But I'm just gonna go back to the portrait, and we'll just pick one just for demonstration.
What they're seeing is way behind what you're showing them.
Okay. So, as you can see here, as I adjust this slider, it's intensifying the effect or not. So if I just put it like halfway in between here,
Hey, Randy, they're still looking at your looks. When you opened it up to show the different, like your dramatic and all that, that's what they're still saying.
okay. But, I mean, that's what he's seeing. What are you guys seeing at home?
We're really delayed. I think you're taxing your computer, and so we aren't seeing those live changes. Everything is very delayed. And when you were saying you were using the slider, we didn't even see that yet.
Okay, I will try closing more and more stuff, but if I close anything else, it won't work.
All right, while you're doing this, if anyone has Luminar or is interested in Luminar and you have Facebook, every morning, weekday mornings at 10 o'clock, Benelli does a coffee break, and they're quick hit 15 minutes or less on a feature within Luminar, and then every weekday at 3 p.m., Angela does one as well. They're on the Skyloom Photography Facebook page. But they are Monday through Friday at 10 with Vanelli and 3 at Angela, and they're 15 minutes or less. They're just quick hits of what Luminar can do.
That's on Facebook.
That is on Facebook, under Skyloom Photography, I believe.
You can get to it from their webpage too, that's
Okay.
where I've seen them. Also, there's, I think if you go up here into help, and you go to the About Luminar 4, there's a link to get to that there. But what Elizabeth was saying, if you guys couldn't hear, is every day they have what's called a coffee break, and it's just a little 15-minute little demo of some feature in Luminar. So it's just, it's free, so it's kind of interesting. I've watched quite a few of them. So,
It looks like a tiny look.
okay, so I stopped the sharing and I restarted it. Okay, so then we'll get rid of this icon. And so then for Luminar, there's different options on the right side here. The default, it goes into the essentials, but I want to go to portrait. So when I click on that, now it changes the different options here. But actually first, what I think I want to do is let's crop this down, because we got a lot of head space we don't need. So something like that. Okay, so then I'm going to go to portrait. And I'm going to whoops. I didn't mean to delete the picture. Okay. Go figure, hey? Now I'm losing control of it. Well, that's good. So what I was trying to do is minimize this panel down here, and I accidentally hit the garbage can and deleted the picture. And I think because this computer is getting bogged down here, let's just move on. So let's talk about some of the other features. So you can, do the sky replacement. So here's a picture I took of the old courthouse here in Waukesha, and it's an okay picture, but let's go crazy and let's put the Milky Way behind it. So I'll walk through it again and show essentially what I did. I'll skip a lot of the steps where I corrected the geometry and all that, and I'm just going to go to the sky replacement. So that's here in the creative, and you go AI sky replacement, and then you pick the one you want. So instead of doing the Milky Way, let's do something different. Let's try dramatic sunset. So there you go. Now you have a really nice sunset behind your picture, and see how it perfectly put it behind that tree. If you were to try to do that manually in Photoshop, you'd be cutting out that layer for a long time to get it just right.
Are those sky backgrounds part of the program, or are those yours?
It comes with like 20 or so, but you can add your own. So this is one of the ones it came with. But if I go down to the load custom sky, well, I don't have any on this computer. This isn't the computer I normally edit on. But yeah, you can just hit load custom sky and take any image you have. Now, if it's not a picture of basically a sky with the horizon near the bottom, if it already has like a building in it, it's not gonna work because it doesn't know what to do. So I've had a few who rejected that because, you know, it didn't have a building, but it would have too many trees along the bottom. So then it doesn't know how to work with it.
Just remember that if it's not your picture, that you can, because you can add your own backgrounds, but if it's not your picture, you can't enter it in a, you know, both pictures aren't yours, then you can't enter it in a contest.
That's wrong.
You can enter it into Wacko, however.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Even though it's not your picture?
Correct.
It depends on the licensing and usage.
Yeah, the other person's licensing, that's correct. But in other words, if you have an image that you've downloaded and it is, you have the rights to use it, then you can submit it to Wacko.
Yeah, so.
I only know that because I had one like that and I asked 2 times, I said, is it okay if I send this one through? And they said, sure, go ahead.
That's because we have no way of monitoring that. And people are gonna lie and cheat, and we have no way of monitoring, so.
Yeah. Now, if you're gonna enter it into like a global contest, you know, of one of the Nikon or Canon or those kind of contests where there's a significant cash prize, yeah, they're gonna be checking. Now, you probably could use the ones that come with Luminar because they're letting you use them, but if you go and take somebody else's sky picture and slap it in there, and somebody goes and looks and says, well, look, it's exactly the same clouds in the same position, that's not gonna happen twice. You know, but, I mean, how hard is it to take your own sky pictures? Just, you know, go do it and build a collection. So then some of the other fun things that they have in here are augmented sky. You can add objects into it. So here I'm gonna add a balloon.
They have new ones with rocket ships.
Yeah, I didn't download it on this computer.
No,
But,
'cause I think you had to pay for that one.
But like for instance, this picture here, obviously, you know, that moon looks pretty fake, but it was just for fun. But I also just wanted to see how well is it going to put it behind the Eiffel Tower. And so let's try to zoom into 100%. It did a decent job. I mean, looks like a little bit of jagginess around here, but it's not too bad. So then,
Hey, Rand, are there other sky replacement programs that you like, or is this kind of the only one you know, or?
this is the only one I know of that works this well, this easily. The only other way that I know that you can do it is you'd have to do layer masks in Photoshop. I assume you could probably do it in On1 as well, any program that has layer masks, but then you're going to be having to refine that edge of cutting out around what you want to replace. And for a picture like this, it probably wouldn't be that hard to cut around the Eiffel Tower. It's nearly a straight line. But like the other picture I had with the trees, to cut around all them individual branches would take you a week.
Get rid of the tree.
Yeah, you would just take the tree out, yeah, exactly. But like for instance, I took this rather boring shot of some airplanes against the blue sky, and you know, go in there, crop it, and you know, fix the plane so it looked nice, and then put a nice white cloudy day behind it that could easily have been how the weather was that one day, instead of just a boring blue sky.
So if you went in close on those planes, how would it look?
Well, let's do that.
Does it do it good? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, in fact, the sky has less noise in it than the airplane does. So maybe somebody could bust you on that. So where's the rest of the planes? Okay, that was the one on the top of
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, so like you see around by the propeller, you got in between the propellers. I've done this on some other ones where you can see in the cockpit because they were flying sideways, and it does a decent job of replacing the sky inside of the dome of the cockpit too.
Very good.
And really, I mean, after I already had the picture the way I liked it in Lightroom, you just right click on it and say open in Luminar, and then it's, you know, a couple clicks in here to replace the sky with whatever one you want. So let's go ahead and replace it with a different one now. I don't know how it's going to do it when there's already one in it. It worked, okay. So these clouds are a little bit funky because it's probably bringing in the clouds from the last edit. I found that this works better when the sky is completely blank, either all gray or all blue, or black if it's night. If you do have some clouds, then there's some sliders here in the advanced settings that you can play with to close the gaps, open the gaps, sky local, sky global. You play with those and get it to be where you can match the clouds between the original and the edit.
Or get rid of the original clouds.
Yes, it depends on what you want to do. Sometimes you want to try to, you know, blend it in a little bit, especially near a horizon. In this shot, you don't really have a horizon. But sometimes, you know, you want to try to blend that horizon there. In fact, there's a horizon blending and position you can do. You can relight the scene. It wouldn't really work for this photo, but let's say here for Cristo Rey, so it relights the scene in order to, you know, the edit from the original. You can see that it changed the colors to make it look more like a sunset type of scene instead of, this was probably just about noon when I was there. And so with this, it looks like, you know, a later in the day type of shot with the sun rays at that angle.
Right.
And the way this thing is positioned in reality, the sun would never be behind it. I was facing to the north, and this is in South America, so the sun would be behind you. So.
Okay, very good, very good.
But I mean, the sky replacement's a fun thing, and you can use it to take a boring shot and make it kind of neat. But there's a lot more features to it. You know, it's more than just the sky replacement. That seems to be the one that, when that came out, nobody else really had something like that. So everybody was talking about it and using it a lot. But some of the other features for quickly retouching pictures, so I can go in here and everybody likes a puppy, right? So let's go see what we can do with him. I'm not sure how it's going to work on a dog. Yeah, see, it's trying to find a face, but it's trying to find a human face. So this isn't going to work.
Try to put a sky behind it.
Yeah.
It won't work. It has to find a sky.
Yeah,
in order
it looks
to
for a
reflect.
All right, let's see how that works. Go ahead, Jim.
All right, now, I hope you're seeing why pick this program over another.
No, we're seeing a black square.
Well, that's not good.
What about other folks at home? Can you see? I mean, I can see your program there. You see where it says hardcover theme on the right side, but the tab you're on was black.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Now we can see
All
it.
right, let's try it again and see if this will let this play now. Okay, you should see black. Now it says, why pick this program over another?
No.
No, it's
Still
delayed.
Oh, that's really weird. Okay, let's,
I think
Now
here-
it
now we
does.
got it.
Now
Yeah,
it's delayed.
okay, I'm gonna have to do it this way because your program is not picking up everything, but that's okay, because we can just go through this.
I think you're sharing, you got two monitors?
I do not. I'm not
Oh.
running two monitors with this.
Okay, well, then I don't know what's going on. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
it's totally good.
hopefully this doesn't happen when we're doing the other stuff, but let's find out. So the first question is, why would you pick this? And it's sort of what Randy was saying, like the program he just showed does a lot of the same things that any other program does. They all do many of the same things. But some programs are simply easier to learn or to use them, or they do the kinds of things that you want the program to do. So who's on one for? Like, why would you pick this one? Well, this is for somebody who uses Lightroom, but maybe has trouble with more advanced kinds of editing in Photoshop. Photoshop is pretty powerful, but a lot of people get lost in there and then they can't get anything done. So they kind of do things in Lightroom and stop. This program can be used with Lightroom, and you send the things out into this program, do things with it, and then send them back. So this could be for you, but it also could be for somebody who has never used Lightroom. They basically just have folders on drives. That's the way they've always done it. They kind of know where their folders are. This program will literally see every folder on your drives. It knows what photos are in there and can pop them up really quickly. And if you wish, you can turn this into a program just like Lightroom. As you start adding things to your photos, this thing can set up a card catalog where then later you can actually go back and search for things that you've done. So it's kind of a combination there. So it's not actually going to ask you to move anything, change anything, do anything with your photos, but it will then start working with the way you have it. And again, this will, it will quickly finalize any photos. It's sort of built for photographers. So instead of Photoshop, which is really built for anybody in the industry using any kind of print media. Maybe you're doing movie posters, maybe you're doing graphics, maybe you're doing some kind of promotions, whatever. Photoshop could do all of those. And then the last one was Randy was saying, well, look, you don't have to pay a monthly fee. In general, these programs don't change dramatically. They just did this year a little bit in that now it's synced to your phone and all other kinds of things if you choose to pay for storage. I don't pay for storage, so I don't have all those features, but that was kind of the big change. I was still using 2018 for a long time. So it's up to you. And the last one here I've got is, what is this program? So what's on this thing? Well, it's really sort of like Lightroom and Photoshop stuck together. But you should know that as good as this is, there are still times if you do really heavy editing where you have to do some removal of objects that are very tough, really crazy stuff, you're probably still going to need a Photoshop. But 90 to 95% of just about anything anyone will ever do, you could do in this program. So you wouldn't necessarily have to move on. And then the last one here just says, well, there's a lot of ways for you to, if you're having trouble with how to finalize your photo or what to do with it or how to make it better, this program will help you do those kinds of things. Okay? So we're going to see now if we can get this to work with the real program, and we're going to take a look at it. So let's see if this works. Now we're going to hope that this lets me work on here. Okay, I hope you can see now on one itself. Is that showing up with you guys?
Yes.
Perfect.
It is.
Let me ask you one other question. If I zoom in, do you see me zooming in as well, or does that not show up with you?
We're not seeing anything.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Over here on the very far right-hand side, you'll see there are two words. One is called browse, one is called edit. If you choose the browse thing, this is where it sees all of your drives. So here are all the drives hooked up to my computer. Yeah, I got a lot of drives, and they're all doing different things. But what's interesting is if you were to click on any one of these, let's say I click this one, these are all the drives that have photos, are all the folders on that drive that have photos in them. And again, if I were to click on them, I would see all of them. So I'm going to go back to the drive I was just on. And these are all different photos that are on this drive in different folders. So the one we're going to use is this one called On One Demo, because that's what we're going to do today. And I'm going to click on that. And these are the photos I thought, well, let's just load them and show you at least some of what this program can do. And again, you saw how these popped up really quickly. Now it's looking at, of course, really low-end files here, but it can show them to you instantly. And if you're working in this program, it can generate copies of these pictures in high res much quicker than Lightroom does. But let me just give you an example of what I might want to do with this program. And again, all of the features over here are sort of like, this is the library view if you're kind of familiar with Lightroom. And I'm going to now edit this picture, so I'm going to click the edit on the top right, and it goes into the edit mode. And let me pick a different picture here. So let me go back to browse. Let's try. Okay, this is a picture that I had, and I just wanted to show basically what's happening here. This is very much like Lightroom, but it can do way more than Lightroom because it's a lot more powerful than Lightroom. It's more like Photoshop, but it works in the same way. So if you're used to the library module, or the development module, there's a thing here that says develop. And if you look down this column, you'll see it's all the things you're used to: exposure, contrast, highlights, midtones. Oh, by the way, they split midtones and shadows into two sections. You're probably used to shadows and you know what they do. And you probably have not played with midtones, but it's just slightly brighter. But it's got all the same sliders you're probably used to. There's some structure here for sharpening, and there's haze if you want to dehaze something. The color sliders, they're all there. It's the same thing you're used to. The first thing I notice when I see this picture, though it drives me nuts, is that it's on a tilt. And so I'm just going to go into crop here real quick. This is as shot, by the way, so I didn't do anything to it yet. I didn't want you to think I was sneaking ahead here and, doing something crazy. Okay, so we now have basically a level picture, and I just to start this and make this quick, I'm going to let the computer just pick the brightness and the contrast. I'm just going to pick auto just to get it started, and we'll go from here. But I just wanted to point out a few things. When I look at this picture now, I notice that some things might be too bright. Like this grass here is really driving me nuts. It's way too bright. So what I'm going to do first is just check to see, like we do in Photoshop, you can see what's overly bright by looking for those colors that you saw there. Like those are things that are too bright. I'm just taking the highlights, bringing them down a little. You can see there's some black ones here, but a few black ones are usually fine when you're editing. Most people leave a couple of them in there. But now I really want to do some work on this, and I want to show you where this is a little more powerful. And I'm going to click from this one here called Develop right here, and I'm going to click to the next one called Effects. And Effects is where you can do larger, more powerful things to each photograph. But I'm going to click here in this thing called Add a Filter. So here I have clicked it. And if you see this, it shows a whole bunch of words, and each of these, of course, is a different thing you can do. Now, in the case that I'm in right now, I just happen to notice that grass on the far, or the greenery on the far right-hand side is driving me nuts. So I'm going to hit this one called Color Adjust, and it puts a little filter here. This filter will control the entire picture as you see it right now. But what I'm going to do is, I notice this is too bright, so I'm going to try to turn it down, and I could pick all these individual, let me start at the top here. If I click one of these are presets that try to emulate different scenes. So if I'm in the desert, this will amplify the colors in the desert. As you saw, this is true green foliage. If I had sky photos, this will really amplify that. I'm going to reset those. I can go to individual colors right below that. But in my case, because I want to do this quickly now, I just want these green things to be not so bright. So I'm going to go over here to where I can adjust the hue, the saturation of the brightness. I'm just going to take the saturation, which is how much green is in there. I'm going to grab this little tweet, this little like eyedropper. I'm just going to click over it and say turn it down. Okay, well I turned it down and you're looking at that and you're going, well, seems to me you went a little crazy because now the whole picture looks like crap. Yeah, you're right. But in every filter, there's a little dot right here. And most of you know that's the mask icon that most programs use. So if I click that, here is the mask of where it is being applied to the picture. And for those of you who have never used mask before, this is just saying, if I look at the left corner of this picture, that's the left corner of the actual picture. So just for funsies, I'm going to tell this program, take out this color over here on the top left. Let's see if we can do that. And what you'll notice is over there on this little white box, it went to black on the top left because it took the color out. Or the color change out is what it did. It took the color change, what I'm trying to do. Well, in this case, because I only wanted to apply right here in the bottom right, I can also say to this program, invert the mask, and now I'm going to paint in just what I want to be tuned down a little bit. So I've done that now. This is what's difficult to do when you're in, let's say, Photoshop. I didn't change anything else other than that green. And in fact, I can show you that because if I do this preview, here was the original we started with, and here is the change part. And I can also do it by clicking on this filter. You can see it's already changed. But I didn't change the rest of the picture. That's difficult to do in Lightroom. And in Photoshop, you have to know how to do this. This is kind of tricky to change colors like this in local areas and know which ways to do this. So that's an example of one of the things I might want to apply. Also, I have created some presets for my camera and some that I use on literally almost every picture that I ever send something out on. So let me see if I can, it's just a little jumpy here for me, but let me do this. I'm going to add the filters that I normally add. And you notice it already helped it quite a bit. What I gave it was 3 filters. One is a vignette. And the reason I love this vignette, I'll open that filter. Now again, I could also get it by just add a filter because there's vignettes. That's how I got it originally. But why I love this one is if you look at it, I'm going to make it even darker. It doesn't mess much with the light parts. It only sort of messes with the dark parts. So nobody really sees how this vignette has been added. You wouldn't look at that and say that's not natural. A lot of times when you add vignettes in other programs, they basically just paste black around the edges. And so you get a much kind of different look to the way the picture is holding up. And you can change all of that. Again, you can change the brightness and all these different things. Again, we don't have time for that tonight. I added something called dynamic contrast. And if you work in Lightroom, you probably know there are 3 ways to sharpen your pictures. There is a texture, there is a clarity, and then there's a sharpen. Well, those all sharpen different size parts of the picture. Now, most people don't know that, so they don't even know where to go, how to actually sharpen their picture. But here are the 3 same controls, but here's for small sizes, medium-sized things in your picture, so maybe more like this bark, which is a little bit bigger, maybe like the trees kind of edges, and large things would be much larger expanses. I have these set, but again, you can play with these, you can change them all if you wish. Again, I do have a mask, which means if I didn't want to focus something, or I didn't want to sharpen it, I could paste it out now. Like if I wanted to get rid of this, I think I can. Let's see if I can. I don't think it's, there it is, it's taking it out. And I've taken it out of there. Well, again, do I really want to do that? I don't know, but I'll just leave it in there. And there's also another sharpening that I've run here. And you can turn these things on and off one at a time to see what they're doing. And I don't know if we can see real well what it's doing, but let's kind of zoom up here a little, maybe you can see what it's doing. This does a really nice job of sharpening up really fine details. It's better for me than what I find in Lightroom, which is why I go to this usually at the end and clean up my pictures. So here's another part of this that's kind of interesting. If you, again, were where we had developed, which was the whole picture, these little things called effects, which you can paint into any part of your picture. But there's also something called local. And local might be, when I'm looking at this picture, I happen to notice that these rocks over here, from my point of view, are too bright. Because they're going to get you to look over here, but I don't want you looking over here, I want you looking out over there. So this now will let me paint in just the areas that I'm interested in. Again, we have masks, but just for funsies, I'm going to click dark. It's going to darken things. I'm just going to touch here a few places. And I know everybody's going, oh my gosh, you just went crazy. You're right, I did. But there's two ways to adjust this. And this first one here is on exposure. It's saying how much darker has it made it. And it made it one stop. Well, obviously I can make it crazy dark. But let's put it back to one stop. And let's say I do several things here. I also wanted to change the temperature or whatever. But then I realized I did this filter too much. There's always an opacity slider at the top of every filter. So I'm going to bring that back just a little bit. And then I kind of painted a little bit into this water. Well, I can take that right out. Okay, that's out. And now I've added that. So with just a few controls, I was able to do quite a bit of things here with this picture. So if we go back to how we started, that's where we started. And just by a few controls, really made some of these colors start to pop. Now I wouldn't stop here. I've actually used this picture and made it look more like fall. And I was able to paint in some colored trees and stuff, and it looks like a beautiful fall picture. And I was doing that simply by adding these different effects. So that's kind of interesting, and I'll just show you a couple other things I was just playing around with. I know Randy mentioned LUTs. LUTs are sort of like presets on steroids. They're much more powerful. This is one that I was playing around with, and I know when you first see it, again, you look at it, you go, well, that's pretty crummy now. Yeah, but what I can do is, remember, this is an opacity slider. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to give it just a touch of that. And then I notice that I want to add to it another color. There's a thing called photo filters. They basically just put a color over everything. And I just put sort of an orange filter. This is not uncommon. A lot of times people use this kind of a color. So again, I turned it down just a little with the opacity slider, but now if I do this thing where I want to see the original, there's the original. And now I see this with a little more of a pop in colors. And I did that in a matter of seconds. And really, those filters are very easy to apply. If I don't like them, I can get rid of them. If I don't like what's happening, I can change these filters. Every one can be changed any way I wish. I'll just show you one. Now, this is not one I would use here, but if I click on this one called Fall, it will go and apply a series of different filters that somebody else has set up. But again, I can go through each of these by turning them on and off and deciding what do I like or not like about that part of the filter, and I can change that part. So maybe I look at this one and I say, well, okay, I can see where the brown is coming in. Remember, I can open it, and then I can also adjust how much of it's coming through. So I can start changing these things really easily, one step at a time. All right, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I'll just show one other thing. Every filter, which has its own controls, which are here, and they're great, very powerful. But there is a little gear right here that you can pop down. And on almost every one of them, not only do you have the opacity slider, but you also have a blending slider, how the effect is blended in. Currently it's under normal, but remember, you have all these other options that you have in Lightroom where you can use a lightening or darkening. And again, we don't have time to really go through how that all works. You don't have to start with this stuff, believe me. This is where you would go once you think you really have kind of dialed this in, and then you really want to do something special. It's very easy to stylize your picture. Plus, you're given a whole bunch of presets when you first buy this, and then you can go in and work with any one photo with those presets and maybe get some ideas you didn't have on your own. Again, you can see here's the ones that I just throw in mine. I do have a folder called My Favorites, and sometimes I put things in here and you say, well, these are really hard to see. Well, you can ask the program to open them up, show them to you much bigger before you would apply them. And then I hope you can see all those that are popping up, but there's a whole bunch of pictures popping up.
Yep.
That are pointing these things. Okay, so anyway, you could use those if you wanted. I'm just going to show you one other thing, because I know sometimes people periodically want to do something with a, let me see if I can make this save here. Okay, I'm going to just show you one that I think is kind of interesting. Sometimes we used to shoot pictures for the City of Waukesha, and they would have concerts and whatever, and they would bring people in. And here's one of those people. Now, this could be somebody you know, or it could be a grandkid, it could be anybody. And the question is, what can you do with faces? Because this is a very difficult face to work with because of the colors involved here. Obviously, stage lighting is really rough, and you can see the edges, you can see the reds, whites. This is terrible, so I'm going to see if I can make this better. So the first thing I touched was portrait. And I'm going to hope that my computer can run this while we're looking at it here. And we're going to see if we can have it pick for me a face. It's supposed to be looking for a face. So let's see if it can do that. Okay, it thinks it picked a face for me. So what I'm going to do, again, I have this little preset that shows me what's going on. I'm just going to turn on what it masked out for me. And it doesn't look like it masked out very well. I'm sorry, normally this thing works really good on this and it masks out beautifully. I do see it's in there, but I don't know why it's being fussy with me right now. But it is. All right, I'm going to try to see if we can do this a little different. Let's, let me just, I'm just going to add it in myself. Let's see if it shows up now. It will actually pick a face for you. Okay, I basically picked the face now, but it will actually do this automatically. Sometimes when we play with our computers and they're running, with these programs, they don't always work the way you hope they would. But what I'd like to do now is I'd actually like to kind of work with this face and see if we can make this face a little better quickly. I'm going to turn that red off, because again, all we want to see is what it's doing to the face itself. And what I'm going to do here is pick something called skin. Let me reset everything. This is the way the picture actually was done when you saw it in the beginning. This is it. But I have some sliders here for skin, and one of the things I'm doing here is just kind of getting rid of some blemishes. I don't want to take away everything because I'm not really trying to make this person's skin perfect. I just want to make it sort of pleasing. But the one here that's interesting is evenness. And what it did was take the colors, so if somebody had some bright red cheeks and they were just not a little too far off, or maybe when you were photographing, one part was a little brighter than another, you can go ahead and make that even. I've done that. Now I'm going to go to the eyes, and it should say to me, and when I do this, I hope, let's reset these. It should say to me, it's kind of being fussy again. I think it's not quite running the way it's supposed to. It would normally give me, let's see if I can do that again. Yeah, it's not letting me really do the eyes the way it should. But anyway, I can also adjust then the whiteness of the eyes and some of the other things. Sorry, this one just isn't quite working the way it's supposed to. So now I've changed this, and so if we go back to 100%, I can again preview that before and after, And you can see I've really cleaned up her skin and the way she looks just by one quick 4 or 5 minute thing, and it's done. But I also can go in there and do some other things. Remember, I have these local adjustments, and if I wish, I can say to the computer, here, I want you to take this section, and I'm just gonna change the color a little more yellow. Now, I know you're saying, hey, you just made that pretty crummy. But I just did that because the saturation came up when I was working, and again, I'm sorry, my computer's a little laggy right here. But I can make that skin more natural by playing around with other filters and turning them in or turning them on in just her face area. Again, using masks, very simple, very straightforward, just the way you think it should be done. So there's the beginning, there's the final picture. And if you're really crazy and you say, boy, that's really nice, but I wonder if I could do any crazy effects with her. I'll just show you there's some really weird ones in here. There are things like rain. Now, you're saying, hey, that's kind of weird. Let me take that out. But now you can see the rain droplets, and it'll give you all kinds of controls as to how to set this up and what the scale is and the opacity, and you can do crazy stuff. Now remember, if you look at this and you say, well, I don't want rain on her face, that would look terrible. Remember, you always have a mask, so we can take that out. So let's see if I can take that out. There we go. So now I've actually taken the rain off of her face. So it looks like it's raining behind her. Okay, well, anyway, I just wanted to show you there's crazy stuff in here. There's normal stuff, lots of filters, pretty easy program to use. I finish almost all of my photos up in this program because I can really sharpen things in ways that are so much better here than any other place I've ever tried to do. So, any other questions?
I have a question. Can you do, can you see the history forever? Can you see it forever?
I think until you hit reset all. Because when you, remember, I should step back because this is probably good to know. When you go into Photoshop, most people know that Photoshop, whatever it's doing is actually doing it to that picture. And yes, you can keep history for a while, but usually once you save it, history goes away. But in Lightroom, because it's acting on the raw photo, it can keep the history forever because it's just a text set of information. This program is using text information just like Lightroom. Nothing is applied to this till you decide to send that picture out. So there is a section, let me see if I can get it this way. I don't have a history for this one, I don't think, so I don't think it's going to show it to me. But we'll see. Yeah, I think it's mad because there's no history. This one I haven't done anything with. I was just going to show you, I promise I'll go back, but I was just wondering if I can show you some interesting sharpening here. Let's say we take her face, which is pretty sharp already. One of the things I've been so impressed with, and sometimes you get a bug that isn't quite that clean. Okay, I just did a sharpening on her eyes, and I don't know if you can see, here's the original, here's the sharpening. Now I put it all over her whole face. Obviously I would normally not do that, but if I were to just sharpen